All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. This is Rounds to Redzone, episode 2. And today we're actually doing a Dynasty episode about QB rankings in Superflex. So my name is Ali, and we got...
Hey everyone, I'm Brendan here again this week, and Ali and I are going to talk about our top 12 Dynasty quarterback rankings and kind of go back and forth and debate why we think who should be where. So how do you want to do this, Ali? Do you want to just read through our whole list, or do you want to go one at a time down and we can kind of compare and contrast?
No, I think we should kind of read through our list
Okay.
first, you know what I mean? Like, we could kind of go through it, and then we can kind of, see what everybody's, or what I guess each other's reactions are, and we can kind of debate those things. So I guess I'll start us off, yeah. So for me, so I guess I should start off with this. So when I am evaluating Dynasty quarterbacks, some of the things that I'm looking for is, a decent floor, great upside, the type of offense that they play for, because that can also really impact, the type of player you're going to be and how much points you're going to put up. Long-term deals, that's, I think, is a big part of it. Your age obviously matters a lot too. But I guess in terms of quarterback, it matters a little less because quarterbacks do play a little bit longer. So I'm not necessarily going to ding like a 28-year-old quarterback because I'm like, oh, well, he's too old. Because, we've kind of seen a lot of quarterbacks play into their, well into their 30s. And, with Tom Brady, he was into his 40s. So, we've seen that happen. But, yeah, so those are some of the things that I value in my dynasty quarterbacks. So, especially in Superflex. So, I guess I'll start off with my number 1 is Josh Allen. Number 2, Lamar Jackson. Number 3, Jalen Hurts. Number 4, Joe Burrow. Number 5, Jaden Daniels. Number 6, Patrick Mahomes. Number 7, Justin Herbert. Number 8, Baker Mayfield. Number 9, Drake May. Number 10, Jordan Love. Number 11, Kyler Murray. And number 12, Caleb Williams. And I guess the guys that I kind of had right outside, and, it's funny because you're probably going to laugh when I say it. I had Cam Ward kind of like not that far out from that list, because one of the reasons was because I think Cam Ward is going to be pretty decent. Obviously I don't know. We'll find out, I guess, later today how good he's going to be in his first game. But the other reason was because he is on a rookie deal, right? We at least have somewhat of a guarantee that he'll play for, probably 3 to 4 years at least as a starter, unless he's just absolutely terrible and he gets benched. That's a different story. But as of right now, we're assuming as the first overall pick, he's going to play for 3 to 4 years. And, when you play in Dynasty, you're obviously playing in probably 2 to 3, 4 year windows. So it kind of gives you a lot of flexibility when you have a guy like Cam Ward who could be playing for, 3 to 4 years. But, yes, I guess that's kind of that's my rank. And obviously Dak was right outside there too, and Jared Goff. But, yeah. What about you, Brendan?
All right. So for my list, so some of the stuff too, like Ali talked about how I'm looking at these quarterbacks, and a lot of the same stuff, like he said, like who's around them, coaching, who, like, player-wise, what their deal looks like, kind of their age, I think. Like I said, it's like it doesn't matter a ton depending on if they're, like, in that late 20s range as opposed to, like, late 30s. Obviously, you're going to think about age a little more, mid to early 30s even. So, yeah, all of those things play a role. I think what's important, too, in these rankings is we're both kind of doing them based off, like, a 4-point per passing touchdown league. If you play in a league with 6-point passing touchdowns, that kind of shifts, obviously, the value. Like a guy like Joe Burrow is going to slide up your rankings, or even like a Dak Prescott could slip more into the top 12, just because we're kind of evaluating it based on that rushing upside a little more with some of these guys. So for me, I have number 1 in a dynasty format. I think Jaden Daniels, and we'll discuss. I guess we can kind of debate why Ali has him 5, which is a little questionable in my opinion. But and then 2, I have Josh Allen, the king. Number 3, I have Lamar Jackson. 4, Jalen Hurts. 5, Patrick Mahomes. 6, Joe Burrow. 7, Justin Herbert. 8, C.J. Stroud. 9, Baker Mayfield. 10, Jared Goff. 11, Jordan Love, and at 12 as well, I have Caleb Williams. And for me, kind of just outside that, I'd agree like a Dak Prescott. I think you could make an argument a guy like Drake May maybe is just outside that. I'm not quite as high on him as some of the other people out there. And yeah, like a Kyler Murray, kind of probably just outside there too. He scares me a little more from like a stability standpoint long term, but that rushing upside is there. And then like a sleeper guy that's probably way like a little bit farther down, but a guy who's worth probably like grabbing. We could talk about is like a Justin Fields. If obviously the stability is the main concern with him, but if he did kind of have like a super stable situation, he's got like legit rushing upside. So, all right. So do you want to just kind of we could pick like a guy here and there that we have some vast differences in kind of?
Yeah.
Or how do you want to?
So I mean, I guess a guy I had or I did not have on my list and you did was C.J. Stroud.
Oh, okay.
So I guess we could kind of start off there. We can talk a little bit about the whole Jaden Daniels and 1 through 6 thing, but I don't really think that's, I guess, that crazy because we pretty much had the exact same players, just in a little bit of different order in 1 through 6, and I can 100% understand why you would have Jaden Daniels at 1, and I respect him a lot as a quarterback. I like him a lot as a player, and, you know, for me, I think the age thing is, I guess, a little overblown with him because I know I get that he's really young and he does give you, like, you know, maybe 10, 15 years in Dynasty, but I'm trying to have Josh Allen personally, so that's my thing.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously am impartial. I'm a big Josh Allen guy myself as well. I think I just put Jaden Daniels first. Yeah, like I said, the age thing. I mean, he's 5-6 years younger than him, I think, or probably 4 or 5 years. So my thinking is just if you're really going to have the first pick, you're probably going to take a Jaden Daniels just to be a little safer on your kind of window length. But I think like from a year to year, like this year, if I'm picking between the two for like a redraft league, I'm taking Josh Allen every time. So, so CJ Stroud, you said you kind of wondering why I would put him.
So I guess I forgot you ranked him 7 or 8.
Yeah, I have him at 8.
Okay, so I guess like I just kind of wanted to hear your reasoning behind why you included him, and then I can give you my reasoning for why I did not include him.
Yeah, so I think with CJ Stroud, again, he's a young quarterback. I think if you're looking at like a dynasty, someone who's going to have, long-term upside, I think he's a good guy to have. I think. Yes, you could make, I'm sure you're going to make the arguments about not the best O-line, not the best weapons around him, but I think Jaden Higgins is a legit weapon. Obviously, Nico Collins is a legit weapon. Dalton Schultz is probably the perfect medium in the NFL for tight end talent. I'd say he's right around 16, 17. And then, I think their O-line is like all right. They definitely have some work to do there. Trading Tunsil probably wasn't the best thing long-term for that O-line, and then obviously they missed on that Kenyon Green pick a couple years ago. And their running back situation isn't great with Mixon kind of banged up and Chubb there. But I think that they have a good defense. They have a good team. They're going to be a good team for a while. And I think C.J. Stroud's rookie year is probably closer to his baseline than last year was. I think last year he had a lot of problems with his receivers. I mean, Diggs was hurt. You look at Nico obviously missed games. Yeah, Tank Dell obviously his career is in significant risk of probably never really returning from that. But then you see they seem to have an emphasis on going to get him pass catchers. They drafted 2 receivers with their first 2 picks. They brought in Christian Kirk. They have Nico Collins. So in my mind, this offense is moving more towards a geared a passing offense. So I think when you see something like that, CJ Stroud is the kind of pocket passer guy nowadays where you could see put up big numbers. I could see him putting up like Joe Burrow type numbers in the right kind of system. I do think in his case what kind of hampers his production a little compared to Burrow is his defense is a lot better. Like I think you could see CJ Stroud be like a champion of first halves, and then when they get ahead of teams, especially in that division they play that's not real strong, he might slow down and they'll run the ball more. But I do think he's definitely got super good stability, right? I mean, he's won a playoff game each of his first 2 seasons. He's not going anywhere. He's going to get inked on a long-term deal in a 1.5 years. And I think he definitely just has upside as a passer. I think he, after his rookie season, people wanted to kind of overrate him a little too high. They wanted to like draft him. He went like top 5 in our Dynasty League redraft.
He went 3rd actually.
I think I was gonna say I think he went top 3. Yeah, so I mean that's a risk with Jaden Daniels I suppose too. But I definitely think C.J. Stroud is still. I think now he's getting underrated in my opinion. People are pushing him too far down after like a slower second season. But I think it's explainable with the receiver injuries and stuff. I think with a healthier, younger receiving core this year, you could see a bounce back and he might kind of return back to closer to that top 4 or 5 dynasty quarterback value. So that's kind of why I have him where I have him.
So, I mean, those are all fair points. I think he does check a lot of my boxes as well for somebody who somebody who I'd have as a dynasty quarterback. He does seem like he is doing really well as a real life quarterback. He is winning playoff games. He doesn't necessarily struggle in that division very much. He's doing all the right things he should be. I guess in terms of, just for me, I again, like he is more of a pocket passer than he's a rushing guy. I haven't really seen much of a rushing upside with him yet. And I think specifically, like you said, because we don't play in like a 6 points passing touchdown league, I think it limits his upside. I mean, his finishes in the last 2 years. So his rookie year was QB 11, and then last year was QB 18. So yeah, I mean, a lot of that has to do with the fact that, you know, his weapons were injured, and, you know, they like to run the ball, stuff like that. Like, I think those are like a big part. And their defense, obviously, DeMeco Ryans is an amazing defensive head coach, and their defense is very good. And yeah, that does limit his upside, and that I think is my biggest problem with him. You know, he is, you know, finishing QB 11 and QB 18, like as a quarterback 2 in my super flex. You know, like, you know, somebody who I could plug into that super flex. Yes, I totally understand him being that guy for me, but as a QB 1, I'm not so sold on him. I mean, his floor is, you know, a lot lower than a lot of other guys. You know, for me, for example, like I think. Drake May was, I mean, I know you are not the biggest fan of Drake May, but he was, I thought he had a higher floor because of his rushing upside. You know what I mean? I think for me played a bigger, I guess, role for me to want to keep Drake May in as opposed to CJ Stroud. Like, I mean, obviously his rookie season was also hampered with a lot of people that, you know, were not there, you know, were injured, and Drake May didn't really have many weapons, but, you know, he still finished, you know, 20 points, 21 points, 17, 18, 20, 18, 18. Obviously, he had some bad games in between there as well. But he had a lot of times where he was in that, you know, range that you would kind of want. You know, obviously, you're not going to have every single quarterback you're going to have is going to score that high. But that's kind of the reason why I would rather not have CJ Stroud. But in terms of obviously long term, he's not going to lose his job. You know, he's going to always have that job. In terms of long-term stability, yes. I mean, he would be the type of guy that I would be looking to draft as my QB2. You know, if once a lot of those guys that I value are gone. But yeah, that was kind of the bigger reason why. Like, I mean, I think if, you know, for example, he does take that step forward this year. Obviously, you and I are both pretty big on Jaden Higgins. You know, maybe they draft somebody next year. Maybe, you know, somehow they're pretty bad this year and they get Jeremiah Love next year as their running back or something. You know, that could change a lot. You know, that could obviously make him, you know, a lot better. Maybe pushes him into that QB top 10, you know, in terms of fantasy. So, but yeah, that was kind of my reason why I did not have CJ Stroud, but I respect that you did. I just did not. I did not personally have him. And then I think you had. Do you want to answer? I guess.
No. Yeah, I think those are fair points. I could see why. I think for me, it's just he's so young. He's only 23 still, and I think he is one of the better pure passers. But I agree. There's not a lot of rushing upside with him, and I do think there is an argument to be made that he has a little bit more of a lower floor than some of these other guys. Like, he is a guy that if things went wrong, he could kind of, like, because he doesn't have any rushing upside, fall a little lower in the rankings by the end of the year. But I just like him long term. I think he's probably, at this point in his career, a safer Dynasty quarterback. I do agree. I could see why people make the argument that you wouldn't necessarily want him to be your anchor as your QB1, but that's where I have him. So we'll see how it plays out.
That's fair. And who was the other person that you had that I did not have? I was kind of curious.
I mean, I don't think you had Jared Goff in your rankings. No. So I could talk about why I have him, I suppose.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm a big Jared Goff fan. I think the Lions...
we know you are.
Yeah, I think the Lions' offense is super dynamic, obviously. I don't think I really need to explain that. I do think, Ben Johnson's gone. Definitely could take a hit on Jared Goff's production. I mean, that's definitely possible. But I'm kind of a believer that it's not going to impact him as much as people think. I think they still have, like, a super dynamic kind of group of skill position players, and I think they'll kind of shine through. I think when you look at Jared Goff recently in fantasy, right, and you can make the argument with Ben Johnson all you want. I mean, it is what it is. Coaches change. That happens in the NFL. Happened to Josh Allen, and now he's kind of turned out on the other side of that as well. Obviously, Josh Allen's a much better talent than Jared Goff, but just for comparison's sake, losing your offensive coordinator, it happens to everyone. It's happened to Mahomes. But in his last 3 years in Detroit, since he's played full season, so he's healthy. He hasn't missed a game in 3 years, which is pretty big in kind of having especially a dynasty quarterback. He's only 30 years old, so he's honestly relatively young. Especially the way he plays, he's more of a pocket passer. definitely he's limited by no rushing upside for fantasy, but he's a pretty good pocket passer and throws the ball all around. But so, yeah, for a 30-year-old who probably hasn't had a lot of injuries, he's only missed a handful of games his whole career, that's pretty young. Like, you're probably looking at still 6-7 more years at least to him playing some quality football. In the last 3 years, though, he's finished as quarterback 10, quarterback 7, and quarterback 6. So he's ascending each year. And, I mean, a guy who's finishing top 10 3 years in a row in quarterback rankings and is healthy, that's pretty valuable, I'd say, for one. I think that kind of justifies his ranking in the top 10 of Dynasty quarterbacks in and within itself. I mean, he's finishing top 10 every year. And then I think, so you look at, obviously, they have Jahmyr Gibbs, dynamic rusher, but also dynamic pass catcher, so he can take screens to the house. He gets receiving touchdowns. He obviously has one of the best receiver duos in the league when you look at Amon-Ra, and I think Jameson Williams is a stud too. I know it's kind of, that can be debated, but I mean, he's got elite speed. He's got elite draft capital at the time because of his elite athleticism. He's a guy who kind of just can't stay out of his own way, and that has kind of hampered his development. Definitely broke out last year. He eclipsed the 1,000-yard mark and really had some huge plays. He's got 2 elite receivers, and then he has Laporta, who's considered by most to be a top 5 tight end in the NFL. So you have an elite pass catcher at the tight end. That O-line is one of the best in the NFL. I know there's a lot of question marks because they lost a couple guys this offseason, but I think they'll probably be okay. He still has one of the best tackle duos in the NFL. And so when you're looking at that, you're looking around the NFL and you're saying, who has a better situation than Jared Goff, right? I mean, he's got 2 very good running backs, 2 very good receivers. Who knows with the Tesla guy as a third receiver, if he ends up being any good. There's, one of the best receiving trios in the league. He's got Laporta. So, when you look at that and you look at those guys are all young, assuming they can keep the majority of them. I saw Jameson got extended yesterday, and I know Amon-Ra's deal goes for at least a couple more years. If you keep that nucleus around him and all he has to do is kind of dish the ball out to these playmakers, I think he just has really safe floor every year in fantasy. I think he's a guy that's always going to flirt with that top 10 kind of ranking. He may not be a guy that's ever going to finish like top 5. I don't necessarily see that happening for him unless he really just plays out of his mind. But I think he's a guy that you could even have as your quarterback 1. I mean, it probably wouldn't be the best in the world, but he's a guy that's just safe, and he has a lot of upside because of his kind of situation, I would say. And he's young, relatively young.
And I obviously do not want to start this conversation over here, but my favorite thing to do when people love Jared Goff as much as you do is I always say Jared Goff is just Brock Purdy, but he was picked first overall, so everybody thinks he is better than Brock Purdy.
I don't know.
And here's the thing.
Brock Purdy's not 6'4" with a cannon for an arm.
But listen. When everything is going right for Jared Goff in terms of his offensive line is great, his weapons are unbelievable, his coach, his offensive coordinator are fantastic. It's always butterflies for Jared Goff. But the second, one little thing deviates just a little bit, it starts to kind of go south for Jared Goff. And I'm not a Jared Goff hater. I do want to put that out there. I've always been a lot higher on Jared Goff than most, even when he was not very good. And by not very good, I mean in terms of fantasy. I mean in terms of real life, even when he got traded by the Rams, and Stafford kind of came in, I was kind of sad to listen, maybe Jared Goff was not a good fit for the Rams, but I don't think Jared Goff is a bad quarterback. I think, he is a better quarterback than most people think, and I think he has proven me right, in terms of that. But the reason why I am personally not a big fan of Jared Goff in fantasy and did not have him ranked as top 12 is, number one, I think, these are just some of his rankings even with Sean McVay. I mean, he finished in 2017 as QB 12, 2018, yes, QB 6, then in 2019, QB 13, 2020, QB 20. In 2021, when he came to Detroit, played 14 games, but finished QB 24. And then obviously Ben Johnson is the offensive coordinator. It's 10, 7, 6. So I guess my biggest worry with him now kind of going into specifically this season is, if he obviously plays well and kind of sustains this and finishes again in the top 10, then it's like, okay, you know what, the weapons, because, again, he's not really a rushing guy, right? You know what I mean? He is a pocket passer at the end of the day. The weapons make the bigger difference for him, and he can finish as a top 10 guy despite whoever his offensive coordinator is because the weapons are so good that when he gets them the ball or he's able to get them the ball in perfect situations where they can make plays. And that will kind of silence a lot of, I guess, my doubt about him. But my biggest doubt about him is Ben Johnson made that offense very QB friendly. I mean, one of the reasons why I think a lot of people, and I argue about the whole Chicago thing, is when people say, well, there's a lot of mouths to feed in Chicago. And I said, you know what? There was a lot of mouths to feed in Detroit, and they all got fed. They were all ranking within the top 10, top 20 most of the time. So it's like, I think it's one of those things where Jared Goff benefited a lot from Ben Johnson making that, that room that place very, very QB friendly for him. And again, he was somebody who I kind of flirted with putting in the top 12. I won't lie to you. But I guess my biggest worry was kind of, and this is funny, I actually had an argument about this with my brother, because my brother was like, Jared Goff is a top 10 quarterback in the league because, he has such an elite offensive line. And I was like, well, he did lose like two people in the interior of his offensive line. I'm pretty, they lost their center because he retired.
Yeah, the center retired. And then guard, I think, signed somewhere else.
And then him and I kind of got into an argument because my brother was saying, well, the tackles matter more. And I was like, yes, the blindside tackle I think matters more, but I think the center probably matters a little bit more than the right tackle. And him and I got into kind of an argument over that because he was telling me the tackles matter more, and he was like, well, who's Myles Garrett or Micah Parsons, or they're not facing the center, they're facing the tackles. And I was like, all right, I guess that's fair. But I don't know. For me, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, like that I think could make a pretty big difference too, you know what I mean? Like I get that it's not the tackles that were lost, but the interior of the offensive line is pretty important as well. So I think it's possible we might see a step back from him, and for I guess for my sake in fantasy, I hope we don't. But I really hope we don't see a step back from him. But I think that's kind of my biggest worry about why I did not include him in the top 12, because he doesn't have that rushing upside, and we don't know what this new offensive coordinator looks like, and if he's going to make things a little bit harder on Jared Goff than Ben Johnson did. So those are just some of my worries, and I think the defense in that division has gotten very good. The Green Bay Packers obviously had a Micah Parsons, so that was already a good defensive unit. Now that's, I think, elite in my opinion. And then on top of that, the Vikings. I mean, Brian Flores always runs a pretty tight ship in his defense, and then, I mean, they destroyed him. Don't get me wrong. Ben Johnson absolutely torched him, and Ben Johnson, Jared Goff torched him in that last game. But Brian Flores still runs a pretty good defense, And then Chicago's defense is kind of, middle of the pack. I think it can be very good. I think it was pretty good under Flus, but then it kind of fell off after Flus left. So we'll kind of see what that looks like. But those are 6 games that could be, very pivotal for his fantasy performance. So that's kind of my take about why I didn't include him, and I guess why I included Kyler instead was because I think whatever's said and done about Kyler and how his performance does dip when Call of Duty comes out and all of that, I think he does bring a lot of rushing upside, which I think does change his game a lot. I think at the very worst, he will still give you a decent floor. And he doesn't do that bad in terms of fantasy. I don't think he's necessarily the greatest quarterback of all time when it comes to, real life quarterbacking. But in terms of fantasy, he always gives you, a pretty safe floor. And I guess we just found out that he has an illness too, so maybe not, maybe hopefully not. But even like last year, I mean, he was coming off an ACL tear the year before, and then even last year he finished QB 10. You know what I mean? Your first year off an ACL tear is usually the one that you're kind of, not 100% at. As a rushing quarterback specifically, it's a little bit of a tougher road for you, and you finished as QB 10, still. So I think that's pretty impressive, and especially because his offensive coordinator does not like to use Marvin Harrison Jr. very effectively either, which I think could really up his floor as well if that starts to get used effectively. So,
yeah, I mean, I personally hate Kyler Murray. I don't even know if he's borderline top 20 for. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of stuff you said about Goff, I definitely think is true. I don't necessarily disagree with. I think if you're comparing Goff to Kyler, that's a pretty obvious answer at Goff. But
no, I agree. Trust me, in real life, I would take Goff over Kyler Murray. Yeah. And I think my point was in fantasy football.
Yeah, I think you're right. The rushing upside matters. Kyler definitely, you're right. When healthy, hasn't finished below quarterback 10, which is important in fantasy. I think there's some injury concerns. My biggest concern with Kyler overall is just job stability. If that team goes whatever, even if I think they go 6-11, I wonder if the coaching staff gets fired and whoever comes in wants to try and get their own quarterback. I think if him and Marvin Harrison seriously don't link up again this year and kind of get on the same page, there's real risk that you see Kyler hit the road. I do think it'd be difficult with his contract situation for them to kind of move past him. He's like owed a lot of guaranteed money, and it would be pretty tough for them to move off him even next year still, I believe. So he could be hanging around. But I do think there's some urgency in his job. He is 28 now. He's not exactly one of the youngest dynasty quarterbacks you can come across. I know we said with Goff that's a young still, but I mean he's suffered a major injury at this point in his career already. So I don't know. I worry about Kyler too, just longevity. He's only like 5'10". He's not real big. Obviously he's had the ACL injury. And then, so for me, that just pushes him down a little more. I think in a year-to-year redraft kind of league, he definitely is kind of right up kind of where you're putting him. For me, with Dynasty, I get concerned about injury, job stability stuff a little more with Kyler than I do with a guy like Jared Goff, I think.
And that's fair. I think with Kyler Murray specifically, I think I was kind of back and forth with putting him in there because of the whole job stability thing, but I don't know about you, but I kind of feel like he's the perfect Mike Tomlin quarterback to go to next year after Aaron Rodgers is done. All of a sudden we're going to get that trade notification. Steelers are trading their 4th-round pick for some reason for Kyler Murray, and then he's going to start there for 2 years, and maybe he'll be the best quarterback they've seen since Ben Roethlisberger, but I don't know about that one.
I could see that, yeah. I mean, I do think if the Cardinals move off him, I don't think necessarily he's going to just be destined to be a backup. I could see him kind of following this, like, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers route, or like just ending up somewhere. I mean, he is 28, is young still. I'm not gonna sit here and act like he's elderly, but I think So we'll see.
I think he's also kind of suffered the misfortune of not having an offensive coordinator so far who really understood him well enough too. And I mean, I obviously like Cliff Kingsbury, and I think he was pretty good with Cliff Kingsbury when when he was in Arizona. But I think obviously he suffered that injury, and that kind of took them out of a lot of things as well. But I don't know. I think with him specifically, like he's just such an enigma because sometimes his upside is through the roof, right? When he plays well, he plays better than everyone. But then when he plays bad, he also plays terrible. I'm talking about like real quarterback. Like for example. We can never forget the Hail Murray. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where he does that and he beats Josh Allen, but then he'll come out of nowhere, and for all we know, he loses to Spencer Rattler today. So it's one of those things where you just don't know sometimes what you're going to get with him in terms of real life. But in terms of fantasy, like you said, it's just, his floor is just too safe a lot of times, you know what I mean, as opposed to a lot of other people because of how much he rushes. And I think that kind of makes the difference for me a lot of times that I'm kind of looking at quarterbacks. But the stability thing was definitely something I thought a lot about, specifically because Goff has that stability and Kyler does not, and even like Caleb Williams, for example, may not have that stability at the moment or job stability, I should say, because I think if he played bad the next 2 years, it could be over for him. But I don't know. I believe in Caleb to take that step forward, though.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. It's funny when you said that about kind of his like inconsistency throughout a season. I pulled up his kind of week-to-week logs from last year, and he went quarterback 15, quarterback 1, quarterback 17, 24, 5, 25, 5 again, 12 is pretty solid. Then he's 30, then he's 4 again. Then he's 23, 17, then 10. Then he's 22, 13, 15, not terrible, and then 4 again. So you kind of see him, he has as many top 5 games as he does bottom 25.
I get that,
past 25. So, and then he has a decent amount. The rest kind of fall between that 10 to 7 or like kind of 12 to 17 range, which isn't really terrible for a week to week in fantasy. But yeah, so he's definitely a guy that can go up and down. I mean, this game against Chicago, he had 4 fantasy points. That's definitely concerning. But everyone has games like that. But yeah, Kyler's definitely. I think he's kind of one of those guys that people are either in on or they're out on. So. And then one last guy on your list, I think. The only other, was it Drake May?
It was Drake
guy?
May, yeah.
So I guess, do you want to start by saying why you like Drake May, or do you want me to just tear him to the studs first and then you can try and rebuild him?
So for me, I guess Drake May, the reason why I like him is, again, he had, very bad weapons last year. I mean, his best weapon was Ramondre Stevenson, and we know how good Ramondre Stevenson is. So, kind of taking that away, I mean, his weapons outside of that really, really, really sucked. And in terms of fantasy football, I mean, he he did pretty well. I think that's something that we tend to ignore. But I mean, again, like I listed it off earlier, but last year when he became the starter, he was 21 points, 20 points, 11, 17, 12, 18, 14, 20, 18, 18, and then 9 against the Chargers. But it was 9.88 though, so it was basically 10 points. But anyways, that's besides the point there. He has kind of consistently finished in that double digits, despite the fact that he had terrible offensive line, really bad offensive coaching, and on top of that, really bad weapons. And he still did pretty good. And the reason I included him is because everything about that took a step forward this year. You know what I mean? Vrabel is the coach in town now. Vrabel is that guy as the coach. You know what I mean? And then you have, Josh McDaniels is back. And Josh McDaniels, yeah, he had a pretty bad stint with the Raiders, but I don't remember the Raiders' offensive weapons being pretty bad when he was the coach there, or I don't remember the Patriots' offensive weapons. I mean, for God's sake, he made Mac Jones a Pro Bowler. I think that speaks a lot for someone. Mac Jones sucks, and he made him a Pro Bowler. So.
I mean, I think Josh McDaniels is a good
offensive coordinator.
He's an offensive coordinator, not a coach. I mean, he had Devontae Adams and Vegas Myers. And Josh Jacobs, I think, but that's beside the point. You could keep sorry, but.
I mean, he also, now you got Trevion Henderson, which we're both pretty big on, And Trevion Henderson brings a lot of, receiving upside as well, not just, rushing upside. And then on top of that, he also has, Stephon Diggs now this year, who, we both think is a pretty underrated receiver going into this year because, he's only ever suffered one major injury in his entire career, and he seemed to be recovering pretty fine from that. So, I don't know. I think Drake May will take that step forward. And even if he doesn't, if he had continued on that track all season long, I can't imagine him finishing lower than QB 15. I mean, I'm just eyeballing these numbers, right? I'm not necessarily saying that this is what it was going to be like, but just eyeballing these numbers, I can't imagine him finishing worse than QB 15 last year. So, I don't know. It's just one of those things for me where I think his situation has only improved, and I can only see him getting better rather than getting worse and taking a step back. And I mean, if he does take a step back, then it is what it is. But I don't know. I just don't see it as of right now.
Yeah. I mean, I get why people are high on Drake May. I get it. I'm a Bills fan, so I'm a little bit biased as to. But I don't see people want to, I think he's just getting a little overrated based on possible production. I think, don't get me wrong, he's showing signs he can be really good. He's had good weeks in fantasy last year when he played. I think you're right, a lot of the situation around him has improved. But I still think, his receiving core is not great. I mean, Stephon Diggs just tore his ACL. He's 30-something years old. He's good. I think he'll be solid for them in the slot and kind of the role they'll ask him to do. But I don't know. We're yet to see him back from that injury. So I'm not sold that he's going to be super, super effective and really make this huge difference for Drake May. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he does, and he just plays out of the slot, and it doesn't kind of demand a ton out of his route running as much when he's going up against, and he can succeed, and he'll be really good for them. I do think Trevion Henderson's a good kind of playmaker for him. He'll see help in the passing game. I mean, when you look at Josh McDaniels with James White in the pass and kind of these receiving backs, he does well with them. I do think Drake May has legit rushing upside, kind of some of the other quarterbacks, and that can certainly make him ascend. I just think with Drake May, everyone wants to make him the next Josh Allen, and there is no second Josh Allen. Not to spoil it, but I think he's just getting a little bit hyped too much for me for what we've actually seen. I think, he had a solid rookie year. That's great, I think. But I don't know. For me, I think, if you're doing Dynasty and you're a rebuilding team and you want to just take high upside swings, he's a good guy to kind of have. But I don't know. To me, there's no signs that he's for sure going to be a top 5 quarterback in the foreseeable future. I think he could be, sure. But I think Vrabel is also more of a defensive coach. Yeah, I think you look at, McDaniels will help. His receiving core is still kind of all right. I mean, I think he just might be a year away still. Maybe next year, if the Patriots are middle of the pack again, they draft a receiver in the first round, and you have him and Trevion, and they improve the O-line a little more, and that's when he really breaks out. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, 400 yards rushing in 13 games for a quarterback is pretty solid, and 2 rushing touchdowns. So I think that's what really kind of can hinder. If he really ascends in that rushing role and really can make things happen with his leg and score a lot of rushing touchdowns, he's going to obviously be real good in fantasy, and he's not going to be going anywhere. And he's definitely, I think, a lot higher upside than Mac Jones, like you kind of mentioned. Mac Jones is kind of like a traffic cone in the pocket. He's not going anywhere. But so, yeah, we'll see with Drake May. I think I agree. I'd probably have him just outside. I think if we were doing like quarterbacks at target, if you're rebuilding, he's a really good guy. I think he'd be tough to get at this point. People probably want to ask a lot for him because of kind of the hype around him. But I think if you're a rebuilding team and you have him on your team, he's a good guy to hold. If you're doing a redraft and your kind of idea is just I'm going to take as many young, high upside prospects, he's a good guy to have. But I just don't know if he's there yet. I think in a redraft format, he would be closer to like quarterback 20 for me or like 18, 19. So I'm not quite ready, I think, to put him in that high for Dynasty. But we'll see. I could be proved wrong when he finishes quarterback 5 this year, and he's 23 years old. So,
That's fair. I think also the bigger part for me also was that, he's pretty young. They clearly are very in on him in New England, so they're probably going to give him the full, 3-4 years, to kind of stay as a quarterback, which gives you a window, in Dynasty.
Yeah, a lot of money to spend, too.
Exactly. They spend a lot of money around him. Like, I think they're going to keep him around for at least his rookie deal, which I think is, very important. Again, if you're competing in Dynasty, you're competing in 3 to 4 year windows, and that is going to be very important to have. I guess, before we kind of go off on this one, I kind of wonder, what did you think of then Caleb Williams versus Drake May? Like, what makes Caleb Williams, I guess so much more different than Drake May? Despite the fact that, I guess, like, because I was kind of calculating their points per game, and their points per game were decently similar. I think Drake May was like 14.5, and Caleb was like 15.2. And just kind of with that, Caleb obviously had the better weapons. They had probably had both a similarly bad offensive line. I don't think that was much different, but Caleb had a lot better weapons than Drake May did, and did not do that much different in points per game. So what is kind of like what makes you, I guess, trust Caleb more than Drake May, considering also the fact that they were both similar prospects coming out of college too. I mean, I think at one point people had Drake May going 101, and then Caleb kind of ascended to that 101.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me with Drake May, I just think versus Caleb, I guess. I think with Caleb, there's a little bit of rushing upside. I don't think it's through the roof. Like, I don't think he's going to put up nearly as many yards. I think he could, like, scamper for some touchdowns, though. So if he gets 3, 4, 5 touchdowns, and Drake May scores 7 or 8, that's not a huge gap there. And then for me, it's just the situation. I mean, Ben Johnson, I think, seems, who knows? I mean, guys who are really good coordinators don't always, like, kind of work out as head coaches or whatever, but he feels to me like he's the kind of the standard for, like, offensive innovation right now. And
yeah, the real deal.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, like you said earlier, like, they've got a ton of mouths there of really talented players. You're looking at, like, Loveland, even Komet's not bad. Obviously, Luther, Burden, DJ Moore, and Rome, Adunze are all pretty talented players. And then you have, I think Swift is all right. I'm not super high on him. I think they probably are a team that you could see take a running back in the next year or two. Obviously, they have like a stable of these kind of like middle tier backs and Roshan Johnson as well. And
a new guy, Kyle, I don't know what his last
name
name
or whatever. Yeah, the rookie, the 7th rounder or something, or undrafted. Yeah. So who knows? We'll see. Like, but I still just think he's got a lot of really good pass catching options. They obviously got 2 real good additions to the O-line. I know one of them was Joe Tooney, but I'm blanking on the other one. So yeah, they're a team that should be better. Ben Johnson's really good play caller, if that's really why Jared Goff has been good the last few years, and he's Caleb Williams is supposed to be this elite talent, then you should see Caleb move up. I mean, in general, I think was a little lower. I'm putting the rookie quarterbacks from last year real high in this. I kept, obviously I put Jaden real high, but I kept kind of Caleb lower than some people kind of put him higher just based on situation and projections still. So, yeah, I think Caleb versus Drake May, I just think Caleb's got a better situation, better weapons, better coach for offensively purposes, despite kind of difference in rushing upside. So,
you know what? That's fair. All right, so today we talked about our top 12 Dynasty QBs. Thank you so much for listening, and follow us on X for follow us on X at Rounds to Redzone. Follow us on and subscribe to us on YouTube on Rounds to Redzone. We appreciate your support a lot. And yeah, thank you for having us.
Have a good day, everyone.